Welcome, my name is Nairi, this is Fly Little Birds, and today the subject of this video is, am I doing it right? So, let me explain to you why I've decided to come at this and talk about this. I've been reflecting on how difficult it is for families in the early stages of having children and the pressure put on them as to be whether they're doing it right or not, and people coming at them from all angles, giving them advice about things that they should do with a young child or a baby, and how that can make a mother or a father feel inadequate at times. And this is the thing about adoption as well. And fostering, you have a lot of eyes looking at you and you have a lot of suggestions. So you may have a social worker come in and suggest you do something one way, and then another social worker might disagree with that, because it's very opinionated, it's very subjective. And I'm also here to tell you that whilst you might really enjoy my videos and you might want to try out a few techniques, you might want to listen to my advice, it is only based on my own experiences. So yes, I have qualifications to back up some of those experiences, but at the end of the day, it's been trial and error. And because our boys are now older, I can look back and reflect on perhaps what worked better, what didn't work, maybe some of the advice I was given that was good, and some of the advice I was given that was not so good. So what I want to say to you is, am I doing it right is very subjective as well. And when it comes to therapeutic parenting, which is the big buzzword, and PACE, which is also part of that, so bear in mind that PACE is just another way of therapeutically parenting. Therapeutically parenting is all about having empathy with the child and coming at it from their angle, whereas in the past perhaps parenting was a little bit more, I'm the parent, you will do what I say, or take the highway kind of thing, and more punitive, so there'd be more punishment involved, whether that be physical or not. Whereas now, and also this is true within families in general, I think that things have moved away from punitive type punishment and more about let's negotiate a little bit, let's understand where you're coming from. So therapeutic parenting is a great way to parent. So I want to put that out there first before you start listening to the video and being quite shocked. But it's also a buzzword. It's also can be misunderstood as to how you do it. And it also can put pressure on the adoptive parent, foster parent, to do things in a certain way. And then if they find it doesn't work, they feel guilty. And guilt is not what we want as parents, because guilt has a bit of a vicious circle. I'm reading some books at the moment that I'm going to share with you. I'm reviewing some books from Jessica Kingsley. One of them talks about anger and expressing anger, and then how you can feel guilty afterward. And that's a cyclical kind of cycle. So, tune into the channel if you haven't subscribed, because I've got some lovely books to share with you very soon. But if we do things differently from what we think people might expect, then we feel guilty. If we feel guilty, that makes us feel down. And the trouble with that is then that can lead to depression. It can lead us to feel isolated, unwanted, and just really helpless. So what I want to say about therapeutic parenting, and one of the things that's made me think about this, is one of the books that I'm reading at the moment, which is Therapeutic Parenting in Teenage Years. And it has a really nice twist on it. It's really very much like, this is how far we could go with our therapeutic parenting. This is what we managed to do, but actually this is what we didn't manage to do. And if you are trying therapeutic parenting and you don't think it's working very well, go back to basics and think about what you're doing, and think about what your baseline is. So what is it you really need to achieve with your child? What is it you really want them to get? What is it you really want them to grasp? And how are you going to get there? Can you do it therapeutically? So some children can respond very well to a therapeutic touch. And let's be honest, for sometimes there isn't enough time to go into a therapeutic method because you need to get the message across really, really quickly. So for some children, being therapeutic is actually being a little bit more blunt. So it's like, you're not going to negotiate on whether they're going to put their finger in the fire. This is just a silly example, okay? It's just a silly example. You're not going to say, no, I really don't think you should go near that fire. It's very, very hot. You're going to get your fingers burnt. You're going to go, no, come away. And you might have to raise your voice as well. Okay, so what I'm trying to say to you is, one thing does not fit all families. You may have tried PACE. You may have even watched all my videos and still not really understand PACE, and you've tried it out and it is not working. And that might be because your child has a particular temperament, or they are very, very stubborn, or you can't get the message through because you don't think they understand. And you're going to have to kind of wind back a little bit and put some ground rules in place before you can work therapeutically with them. So what I want to say to you is, you have to not put too much pressure on yourself just because you hear this word all the time. So by all means, check out all of my playlists on therapeutic parenting. I've done so many on them. I've also done one especially that goes into a practical application of it, because I can say to you, oh, therapeutic parenting is amazing, go and do it. PACE is amazing, go and do it. This is what it stands for. This is what it means. But unless I give you examples of how I've used it and how I think it's worked for me, it's going to be useless to you. But even if you watch those videos and you've tried a few things out and you're not getting anywhere with your child, or you still don't understand it, you can't put that pressure on yourself, because you may find another technique or another way that you don't think is therapeutic. But if it's working in a way it is therapeutic, does that make sense to you? So if you found a way that is working with your child, providing that you are not neglectful, you have a kind approach, you are prepared to listen and understand your child, providing that's in place, whatever method you use or whatever way that you manage to do this, if it's working, stick to it. It doesn't matter what it's called. It doesn't matter if it doesn't fit into what you believe to be therapeutic parenting. And then, a further on stage is gentle parenting. If you are doing something that really works for you and your child, then just go with it, because it may be that through what you're doing, you're building up a stronger attachment. Now, I am going to give you one example, which I've given before, about my younger son and the way that, particularly when he was younger, but sometimes now, if somebody is too understanding, if somebody is too giving, too loving, too empathetic, he will work that out pretty quickly, and he will be able to work that to his advantage, but not in a good way. And when he was younger, we call it primary school, we have primary and then we have secondary, he had a particular helper working with him that he really liked, but she was quite a young lady. You would probably say a girl, quite a young lady compared to me anyway, and she really liked him, and he worked that out. So she allowed a little bit of give. Now, if you were looking at that therapeutically, you might say, well, she allowed a little bit of empathy, she allowed a bit of curiosity, maybe she was playful, very accepting. Okay, those are the PACE the PACE thing, which is PACE. So playful, acceptance, curiosity, empathy. You would say she probably had all those qualities and she probably used them on a daily basis with him. But what she didn't learn to do was understand when she was being manipulated and controlled. So she didn't have the other side of it, where she was probably very tight on boundaries and would learn to say no when no is no. And so you have to be able to balance out therapeutic things with just plain no's, and we can't do that today. You will not do that, because this is what will happen. That is still therapeutic in its own way, because you're not going at it in an unkind, cruel way. You're not being abusive, you're not being neglectful, you are trying to put a structure in place that works for your child. So please don't watch all these videos and think, I can't do that with this child. Or even if you've not adopted yet, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. This is really complicated. In some ways it is, because when you are learning what your child is like when they come, or if you have your child and it's still early days, which early days I'm going to say is about 2 years. Early days is 2 years up. And you're not really getting there, you're not getting the responses that you want. If you look at the videos I've made, or you read too many, you can't read too many books, but you take that to heart too much and you think, oh, this is just not working, you will get really down and feel really guilty, and you won't feel like you can ask for help because you'll feel like you've failed. But I'm here to tell you that therapeutic parenting is a word, and it is a method, but it's not the only way to do things. Okay, providing you're coming at it with the best interests always of the child, not your best interest, not the family's best interest, not pleasing professionals, whoever they may be, but you are putting that child at the center and you are looking at their best interests all the time, which includes looking after yourself, I might say, then you are finding a method that works for you, and it may not have a name. It may be slightly differently from what you've seen me talk about, and you may look at some of the videos I've made and go, that will not work for the child I have. Or the child that I have is not as difficult as that. I don't need to do that all the time. I don't need to stop and explain myself all the time to my child, because they're getting it pretty quickly. They're picking things up pretty quickly. Bearing in mind that our boys have got developmental issues, and if you look back at my original story and even the story I put on a few videos ago where I've recapped the whole story, you will see that we are dealing with lots of difficulties. And your adoption, your foster child may not be like that. You may not need all these techniques. So please have belief in yourself about what is right for you, your child or children, and your family. And even if you have to reflect on that and you have to journal that, for example, I use crafting as my outlet, but you may be able to journal your journey a little bit and write down some of the things that are working for you, write down some of the things that aren't working for you. Just try to own it as a family, and be prepared to stand up for yourself. If somebody challenges you and you think something is working, then be prepared to explain why it's working, and that you're going to continue to use that. I hope that helps you. I hope that reassures you that we're all different, and that buzzwords are great, methods are great, but they are created by someone somewhere. They may have some research behind them, but things move around and things move on, and it could be that if I'm sat here in 20 years when I'll be 75, that'll be interesting. I might be kind of talking to you about a different method. We don't know that. So I hope that you will subscribe if you think this type of information is useful for you. Thank you to my members. I only have 3 members, but thank you to Erin, Chris and Mary for your continued support. And I will see you soon on Fly Little Birds. Thank you.